in Angel Square is being tested and commissioned, so you might hear something in the next few minutes, and then it will start again vociferously at 8 o'clock, so we must vacate the building by 8 p.m. So I'd ask you to bear that in mind when you're making any presentations, questions or comments, to ensure that we can keep everything on time and not have to be ejected from the building and following Stuart straight to V&B's or something similar. Okay, so item 1, if you've got your papers, just to confirm, and a very warm welcome to everyone, is apologies for non-attendance. Marina, Tracy, can you help, please?
Apologies from Councillor Terry Guilford, Chair.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed. Okay, otherwise all present correct, and if anyone else would like to join, please feel free to do so around the table. If there's a space, otherwise under the auspices of James there in the other section. A very warm welcome to all those members of the public who are joining us today on the YouTube link through West Northants Council. We very much welcome the participation of all people, either here in presence or online. Okay, item 2, declaration of interest from members and officers. We take this very seriously. If you have any declaration of interest, please do state the interest and the nature of that. And if you do not or have not raised that essentially at this part of the meeting, please do so before the item starts. Item 3, just to confirm that the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of September are true and accurate. Can I have a proposer and a seconder? Thank you, Tony. Are we all in favour?
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed, Alison. Okay, thank you all. I'll sign those as being correct. Thank you. Thank you, Marina. Okay, so further to that, and a point in terms of Chair's announcements I have on item 4 is that clearly we have a tremendous amount of important work that goes through West Northants Council, and much of that is online, and I would encourage all members to take the opportunity to look online, and members of the public also, at our website and understand how they can contribute to the consultations that are there, regularly updated from the news section on the front page, and also keep in touch with any latest developments. We have some fantastic work going through. The forward plan is also on there, together with obviously the agendas and papers for all associated meetings. We have some fantastic consultations, of which we have documents in our pack today, which are also very much worth engaging with. Okay, item 5, progress reports. I'm going to go on to that briefly, but before I do, I'd like to just change the agenda items today to enable Councillor Lister, who we welcome this evening, and colleagues to present his report, as he has to go off to chair another meeting very shortly. So I'm going to take items 7, 6 and 5 in that order, as opposed to 5, 6 and 7. Okay, so on that basis, if we start with the economic strategy on page 55 of the papers today, I'm going to hand over to you for the opportunity. Thank you. Who would like to start?
Brilliant. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to give an overview of the economic strategy and where we are with it, and then give you an opportunity to ask questions. So the first thing to say is that it's an exciting opportunity. It's the first economic strategy for West Northants as an area, and we're excited to sort of put this strategy together to ensure that we've got a thriving economy over the next sort of 5 to 10 year period. If you just flick to the next slide, please.
Vicky, sorry, just for the purpose of the YouTube, could you introduce yourself?
Of course I can, apologies. So I am Vicky Klamuka, Head of Economic Growth and Inward Investment at West Northants Council.
Thanks very much indeed.
So one of the things that's really important to us is to make sure that the strategy is really aligned to our direction corporately and as we're developing our plans for the area. So it's really important to us that the economic strategy aligns with the One West Northamptonshire plan, which is being developed over a similar timescale. And as you can see on this slide, it really sort of fits with many of the key themes here, particularly that sort of aspiration to have a thriving economy, skilled workforce, good connectivity. And so the strategy is really aligned to that. And if you sort of flick to the next slide, again, with the aspirations outlined in the One West Northamptonshire plan in terms of some of the, where we'd like to be over the next sort of 5 years, a lot of these are things that we want to make sure that we can really have sort of priorities and actions to implement through the economic strategy. So things like, again, the skilled workforce, increasing our GDP, making sure that West Northants is seen as a place to do business and invest and grow. So if you just flick to the next slide, please. So there are three key themes in the economic strategy: people, place and business. And we are working with a consultancy called GC Insights, who've done a lot of the collection of evidence for the strategy, and one of the papers we provided before the meeting was the evidence base that they've put together in terms of the analysis, economic analysis of West Northamptonshire. And what I'll do in this meeting is just provide a few of those key insights, as well as sort of what we see to be the priorities for the strategy and the next step. So if you just flick on to the next slide. What you can see on here is that we are, in terms of our strengths as an area, we've got lots of strengths to celebrate and to build on, just in terms of our location in the country, in terms of our connectivity, in terms of some of the sectors we've already got here. We've got a large and strong business base. We've recovered our economy well since the COVID pandemic. And we've got sort of, we've sort of got higher levels of GVA now than we did pre-pandemic, and we've got a growing employment base. So there's lots of positives for us to build on as an area and as an economy. If you flick onto the next slide, we, one of the things that we have looked at then is some of the areas that we sort of need to build on further. So things like looking at our productivity levels as West Northamptonshire compared to the England average. We have got a bit of a productivity gap. We have got a slightly declining business base, and I'll sort of provide a bit more detail about that. And then also when we look at our sectors and where our sector strengths are, we have got some employment sort of concentrated in some of the sort of lower value sectors. So if you flick onto the next slide, I'll just sort of go into these in slightly more detail. So when we look at people and skills, one of the things we can see when we analyse sort of occupational profiles is that we have got a higher than England average concentration of employment in the sort of process plant and machine operatives. We've also got a slightly less concentration than the England average when we look at sort of managerial directors and sort of senior professionals as well. And when we look at our qualifications profile, when we look at the sort of higher level qualifications, so your level 4 and above, we have got a slightly lower than England average concentration of sort of higher level skills. So that's maybe something that we want to look at. If you flick onto the next slide, I mentioned the sort of declining business base. So we have traditionally always been a strong area for startups, but what we've seen in the last few years is that we have had a slight decline in our business base, and that has been slightly at odds with the sort of England position, where we have seen sort of slight increases, not sort of huge increases, but they've still seen steady increases. And I think the other thing to note is that when you split that down per sector, and the graph on the top right sort of shows those where we've grown businesses and where we've declined in the red. The areas where we have seen that decline has been more in the sort of professional, scientific and technical, in the sort of sectors that perhaps we would want to see growth in. So that's certainly something that we're looking at, and we want to make sure that we've got sort of interventions in this strategy to address. If you flick onto the next slide. The other thing I mentioned was productivity. So although we have seen our GVA grow and recover to pre-pandemic levels, when you look at our productivity, so sort of looking at our output per hour worked for West Northamptonshire, we are slightly below on the sort of England average in terms of productivity levels. However, and if you flick onto the next slide, that is something that we're seeing in the wider region locally. So across the South Midlands, when we look at the other authorities in our in our locality, we are seeing similar patterns there. And actually, West Northamptonshire, when compared to our sort of neighbouring areas, is actually sort of looking sort of slightly stronger in terms of productivity. So if you flick to the next slide, when we then look at our sectors, so one of the key things we wanted to look at in this strategy was, what are our sector strengths and where do we want to sort of focus our sort of efforts sort of in the, in terms of attracting new investment in. So these slides just sort of show which sectors we've got strengths in. So this is looking at both sort of size in terms of total number of employees within sectors, as well as where we've got that concentration when you compare it to England, so where we've got a slightly stronger concentration of a sector, as well as whether we've seen growth in that sector. So sort of some of the ones that we sort of see as sort of strengths at the moment, unsurprisingly, sort of logistics and warehousing, given where we're located, is a strong and sizable sector. Health and social care, construction, and advanced engineering. We know that, with our concentration of sector around Silverstone, that we've got a strong sector there. And if you flick to the next slide, the other two sectors that we sort of see that strength in are the visitor economy and sport, and then also sort of a very niche sector we've got is shoe manufacturing. So although it's a small sector, actually we've got a huge strength there. So when you think employment location quotient, one is that you're on a par with England, and even for things like logistics, we're only 1 point something. With shoe manufacturing, we're 21.1, and I think the consultants worked out that 1 in every 5 shoe manufacturing job is actually based in West Northamptonshire. So although it's a small sector, it's certainly a sector that we want to celebrate and build on. So that sort of takes us to look into the future. So if you flick to the next slide and then the next one again, thank you. What we've sort of spent a lot of time looking at is, well, where do we want our investment focus in terms of sectors to be? We know what our current strengths are, but if we're looking to grow sectors for the future, if we're looking to invest and attract new sectors in, where should that focus be? And after sort of much debate and sort of engagement with many different sort of partners on this, our feeling is around sort of having that, the thing that sort of pulls together the area that we really want to be known for, or our USP, is really this sort of innovative technologies, our knowledge economy, and then sort of drawing out the sectors where we sort of, the aspects of the sectors that really sort of draw on that. So whether that's our motorsport sector, our advanced manufacturing, with logistics recognising it's a strength, but actually it's the advanced end of logistics, which is what we really want to draw in, as well as sort of building on perhaps new sectors that we've not been traditionally strong in the past, but that we want to build in the future. So thinking about things like life sciences and clean energy. But it's important to recognise that although that we sort of feel that, that should be the sort of focus in terms of investment and attracting new investment in, that actually we still have foundational sectors that are really important to our area. So, thinking about health and education, but also what we've called our experience economy. So thinking about our tourism and visitor economy, culture and leisure, and all the things that make our town centres and our rural areas attractive places to live and work. So if you flick onto the next slide, and the next one again. So what we've basically done is kind of said, well, we take on all of that evidence and understanding of our economy to say, well, actually, what priorities, what do we need to focus on across these 3 strands of people, place, and business in order to ensure that our economy thrives over the next sort of 5 to 10 years, but also thinking in terms of the long term. And this is what we're sort of engaging with stakeholders on at the moment, is just to refine these priorities so that we can draft the final strategy, and would welcome views from the committee tonight. So with people thinking about things like, actually we need to increase the skilled workforce to make sure that we can meet the needs of those sectors that we've identified. We want to make sure that we increase prosperity for all, and that we're a fairer and more inclusive West Northampton, so that it's not just impacting on one group of people, but that we see the benefits of this thriving economy across the board. Thinking about young people and making sure that we're providing opportunities to create meaningful careers for our young people, as well as ensuring that we can that people are ready for and sustaining fulfilling work. And then thinking across place in terms of the importance of quality housing, making sure we've got the right employment sites. So we've been liaising very closely with planning policy and the local plan development in this strategy, thinking about our town centres and the importance of having thriving town centres, and also the importance of infrastructure for that sustained growth. So again, sort of liaising very closely with the local transport plan and others in terms of making sure that infrastructure is well considered. And then on the business side, we've got to make sure that we look at this issue with productivity. So how do we raise levels of productivity amongst our businesses? Thinking about sustainability and making sure that we look at carbon emissions and reduction in carbon emissions amongst our businesses. And then also thinking about growing the number of ambitious growth businesses that we have in West Northamptonshire. So if you flick onto the next slide, each of those priorities will have in the strategy more detail which underpins sort of the rationale for including that priority, and more importantly, what are those outcomes that we're trying to achieve by having that as a priority, and then a list of actions that we will undertake over the next 5 years to ensure that we achieve those priorities. And if you flick onto the next slide, hopefully that will all link back to, again, looking at our One West Northamptonshire plan and what we're trying to achieve with the place, helping to make sure that our outcomes in this strategy really align to this list of aspirations, to make sure that we really have those, we can really sort of have those tangible outcomes and make sure we've got deliverables to sort of demonstrate that we've had an impact with the strategy. If you flick to the next slide, one of the things that's really important for this strategy is that it is that we've worked closely with partners in the development of the priorities for the strategy, but we're keen to ensure that we also have sort of co-ownership of the strategy with partners as we're implementing and delivering the strategy as well. So thinking about potentially creating an economic growth board or something similar to oversee the delivery of that strategy, working with partners, but working also with other boards that already exist. So thinking about things like our town centre forward boards, anchor institutions, so that we've got a firm basis of governance to ensure that the strategy can deliver success over the longer term. If you flick to the next slide, just to sort of mention sort of our engagement and consultation to date, so as well as sort of internal engagement with a number of officers and different departments within the council, we've worked very closely with partners as well. We've held a number of roundtables with different stakeholders, including businesses, and we've currently got an online business consultation live, which is mainly aimed at sort of business stakeholders and some of our key stakeholders to ensure that we can check that our priorities and the actions that we've identified are the right ones before we kind of put them into the draft strategy. So if you flick onto the final slide, in terms of next steps, we're now at the sort of drafting stage of the strategy. So the purpose of coming tonight is to check that we've got the sort of, the priorities right, that you check there's sort of no sort of questions or areas that you think we've really missed. The plan is to take it to Cabinet for adoption on the 4th of March, and then we're looking to kind of have a launch event for the strategy in early March as well. So I think I'll stop there and check if there's any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Super, that's very helpful indeed, and thank you, Vicky. You've highlighted some really important areas that the Council clearly works on. But engagement is absolutely critical, as you quite rightly say, and particularly with businesses. A prosperous society can't be taken for granted. It has to be worked at, and it's all partners working together. So those anchor institutions are really quite critical, as you indicated, and certainly working with university, our further education establishments, and absolutely giving people quality and opportunities, such as apprenticeships that are valuable in all areas. And that really means engaging clearly the younger audience, working with secondary education. Is that something that you've thought about or you are doing? Because it is certainly worth doing. I'll open the questions up to the rest of the committee, and please then come back on those if you can. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you. Make sure it's all working. Thank you. You talked about consultation and you talked about business consultation, but when I Googled it, I couldn't find it on our consultations and I had to sort of find another link. Is there a reason why it's not on the general site? Because the sell-by date is the 15th. It's not very long, so if it's not been visible, are people actually going to see it?
Okay, if you'd like to take a question from Tony as well. Thank you.
I've got another question.
Okay, fire away the questions, then we'll take them.
The second question was, when we searched through it, from comment from our rural councillors, there wasn't a great deal on the farming community or rural jobs. Was that a deliberate thing? Is that not really a focus of WNC? That area of rural jobs and farming.
Okay, we'll take all the questions at the same time.
No problem.
Thank you. Tony.
Thank you. Excellent presentation, but I'll sort of come back to a question on logistics. Do we grow or do we contain? Obviously, we're in the right place in the country to distribute from where we need to. but what value are we adding because we're not manufacturing? What problems are we causing with congestion on the roads? You know, is it the right thing to do? Should we try to contain logistics?
Thank you. Okay, any other questions at all from the committee? Thank you, William.
Yes, I think this was said at the briefing, but I still feel it. A lot of worthy objectives, but how are we actually, what is the action plan for achieving some of these things, like a higher skilled workforce or better housing or improved connectivity? Or are you reasonably going to say, we're just not at that stage yet, let's get the aims right and then we'll think about the hows?
Thank you, William. Question from James.
Thank you, Chair. Again, very good presentation. Really thought it was excellently well thought out. My question is around, obviously, with a lot of discussions around devolution at the moment and how that might impact what we're planning to do here. I understand, obviously, devolution has been somewhat thrust upon us, but clearly that could have a massive impact on our plans here locally and our vision strategy. So I just wondered whether that's being considered as part of this. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee at all? Thank you, sir. Jake? Thank you. Okay. Can I hand them back to you? Thank you very much, Sinead.
Great, thanks, Chair. So you mentioned about secondary schools, so just to pick up that point. So one of the things that we took over the hosting role for back in April last year was the Careers Hub, which works very closely with secondary schools across the South Midlands, including the secondary schools in West Northamptonshire. And one of the priority areas within this strategy is developing and supporting our young people to have meaningful careers, and the Careers Hub is a way that we can really tangibly do that by working with secondary schools, helping them to improve the quality of that careers education, but also making those links with employers so that we've got that really strong connection between our schools and our employers, so that not only are we creating those meaningful opportunities, but we're making sure that they're also aligned to our employers and the needs of our local employers as well. Just on the consultation point, it's a really good point. We've spoken to the consultation team. We could add the link on there. I think the reason it was sort of not put through that portal, if you like, was because it was more focused on engagement with businesses and sort of specific stakeholders for the piece of work. But it has been promoted widely on social media and through particularly through our business communication channels as well, because that's the kind of main target audience for it. But we absolutely recognise the point and can add a link to it on there and possibly look at, do we need to extend it a week or two to make sure we've got that opportunity. Just to pick up the rural point as well, absolutely, one of the requirements for this piece of work was to make sure that the piece of work recognised the fact that we've got a range, we've got the urban and we've got the rural in our geography, and we want to make sure that we've got both of those things covered. Recognise it isn't perhaps clearly coming out in those key sectors, but that doesn't mean that it's not an important sector for us. So, for example, just to give an example of some of the current work we do in that sector, we've had rural England prosperity funding, that we've had business grants for rural businesses, including many agricultural and farming businesses, which has hopefully had a really tangible impact, and we'd want to see some of that funding and activity continued to make sure we continue to invest in our rural businesses and our rural community. On the logistics point, it's fair to say, we've had many discussions about the sectors and the different focus areas for this strategy. I think we recognise, in terms of where we focus our future attraction of investment of sector, that logistics, because of where we are in the country, will sort of take care of itself in some ways. We want to make sure we've got that range of sectors that we attract, and sort of make sure we've got that range of sort of higher value occupations. We recognise that there are higher value occupations within logistics, but what we want to do is build that advanced end of logistics, make sure that from a logistics point of view we're known as an area that's sort of future, leading the way in terms of future logistics and some of that innovation within logistics, but also making sure that we're investing in other sectors as well, and that's where that sort of linchpin of sort of innovative technologies come in, because we want to be sort of building sectors that have got those innovative technologies, whether that's logistics, advanced engineering, whether it's life sciences, and that's kind of the sort of thinking, the current thinking for the strategy. Just in terms of the action plan, there is another layer of detail that I haven't shared tonight, which is the sort of draft action plan, which we're consulting on at the moment. And that's where we sort of take each of the priorities and say, well, actually, how are we going to achieve that? And, you know, what are the sort of outcomes for each of those? So for things like, you know, using that skills example, it would be working closely with the Careers Hub to make sure that we are looking at actually how can we sort of tangibly improve the sort of quality of the careers education. And then we look at things like, you know, how we measure our, you know, number of young people who are not in education or employment as a sort of measure of whether we're sort of achieving that or not. And then just to the devolution point, or thinking about the wider regional geography, it's probably worth just sort of saying that as a South Midlands area, sort of we took over sort of hosting services on behalf of 6 local authorities back in April last year. And one of the things that government asked of us was that we developed an economic strategy for the region, which is happening in parallel to this, and we're very much making sure that our strategy aligns with the South Midlands strategy, and very much that strategy is, you know, the aim of that is to pull together all the sort of local priorities, so that is very much is being taken into consideration for this strategy. And I think that was all the questions.
Thank you, Vicky. That's very helpful. And Stuart, just like to bring you in there. Thank you.
Just to add a very small element, I think that was very comprehensive. But obviously, the local plan in regard to the how and where does logistics go is that interaction between the economic strategy, which looks at the sectors and how we want to build the sectors, with that geographical element, which is the local plan. So again, where if we want to see logistics, should that go? And I think the plan, as is being produced, is looking at a proposal that keeps it limited to the M1, which reduces some of the conflicts that you talked about there. So it's understanding the role and the interactions of the different strategies coming together is where you get the answer to that particular conundrum that you pose there, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. One of those areas quite clearly you raise is logistics, and we're part of the Golden Triangle, so quite clearly in the day we have a tremendous amount of ability to connect up not just the UK, but obviously either side countries around us who very much depend on that network that we have that runs crisscrosses right through our counties, we know, and we're very proud of. I think the statistic is that something like 75% of the UK population is within a 2-hour drive from our front door. So it really is an important point where we place ourselves. Internationally, as well, as we gather that point and that thought, is that quite clearly tourism is a very important sector to us, and we value enormously the opportunity to raise that £1 billion that comes in as a county-wide investment every year, together with obviously all the multiple visitors and different attractions that we have. I think we have many more stately homes here than we have in neighbouring countries around us, and we're very proud of that. And therefore, obviously, food and drink sector, the welcoming hospitality sector that supports 30,000 jobs across the county is really one of those very important areas that we all benefit from and certainly all passionate about. And if we're not, then we should look and understand how much of a fantastic county we're part of. I'm glad that 74% of the people who come and stay in the county come and stay in West Northamptonshire as well. They're more than welcome to. Thank you so much for that. Dan, would you like to add anything at all as cabinet member responsible?
He's done it all, so
fantastic. Okay. Super. No, that's really good of you, Niamh. Much appreciate that, Vicky. That's very helpful, and we certainly encourage it along the way to do its successful journey, as they say, through the system. Lovely. Thank you. Okay, item 6 then, active lives strategy development. So Peter Cox, welcome, Head of Sport and Leisure and Culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Hi everyone, Peter Cox, Head of Sport, Leisure and Culture, West Northants Council. I've got some colleagues with me as well to support through the questions. I'll let them introduce themselves to you. They're part of the strategy steering group as well. So if I hand to Chris.
Hello everybody, Chris Holmes, Chief Exec, Northamptonshire Sport.
And to Chris, just keeping it simple.
Chris Serbin, I am the public health practitioner of West Northants Council.
Okay, thank you. Tracy, I didn't know if you were going to put an image of the strategy document up on the screen. It's not a slideshow, I do apologise, but it's a fairly easy read. That the intention is that it is a short, punchy strategy document. Everybody who should have had the opportunity to read it would be circulated before Christmas. we attended this committee back in April and sort of with some slides did present our intention to how we were going to develop this strategy with a slightly different approach from perhaps how we may have written this in previous years. This is very much a draft looking strategy, so we are welcome any feedback from everybody here tonight to help us to prepare it ready for its cabinet journey on the 4th of March. Right, I'll carry on and as it pops up on the screen. So our vision for this strategy is around creating the conditions that enable everyone in West Northants to be more active. And we've designed this strategy around 3 key pillars. So this is around place, people and communication. At the heart of this is collaborative action. Here we go. If we could just pop it down to the to page 4, that would be great. Thanks. Yep. And just a little bit lower, please, just so we can see this image. Thank you. Brilliant. That's spot on. Thank you. So this is kind of key to our strategy, really. This is our framework for the Active Life strategy, what we're basing ourselves on. As I say, 3 key pillars around place, around people and communication. Intention with this way of working is that at the heart of this is collaborative action. So we can't do this on our own within sport, leisure and culture at the council or within the sports sector itself. So we do need to work collaboratively with partners. Setting it out in this format and then the smaller little lozenges that you see in there, the intention be that as people start to look at this, so colleagues internally and externally, they start to see where they sit and where their contribution can come in and play a part to people living a more active life. As this all comes together, we create behaviour change. So behaviour change being not just the way that we start to work together, but also how we engage and how we encourage our public to engage with the opportunities to live a more active life. Thank you. Can we scroll down to the next page? So the strategy document just picks out some of the key data and insight as to, well, why are we doing this? Why do we need to do this? And why do we want to work in a slightly different way from perhaps we would previously? So I won't go through all of the data here, but there's some data in here which backs up some of the key challenges that we've got in the area around inactivity and some of the key demographic groups as well that we really need to try harder to engage and understand why they don't at the moment. And then if you just scroll down a little bit further, thank you, there's a couple of little points in there which really try to highlight the benefits of people when they live a more active life, such as the reduction in risk of heart disease and stroke, for example. There's also the bottom point there around the value to people being more active and how sport leisure sector generates £4 return for every £1 spent as well. So if we just scroll. So Sport England are our key sort of governing body, and they produce a survey annually, and it shows us how active and inactive our adults and our children are. So if you could just scroll down a little bit further, please. Now, we've grabbed these from Sport England's database. Now we have got ideas of how we improve this to make it more visibly appealing in the actual final strategy document. But the intention here is to show that line and how it's kind of flatlining. So all the fantastic work that goes on and has been going on for sort of 9-10 years, all the fantastic opportunities there are out there for people to be more active. And as an offer, it's getting better and it's more professional. But if you can see on that line, we're not making a huge level of growth in encouraging more people to live active lives. So if you can just scroll down to the next bit, please. So we carried out a survey recently in connection with our leisure centre procurement project, and some of the key sort of comments that came back to us around what stops people being active and what would help them to become more active. So really important information for us to gather on this one. Time, cost, facilities and activity offer seem to come up time and time again. So they are within, most of those are within WNC's gift to have some sort of level of influence over that. So that's what we'll attempt to do through delivery of this strategy. So we're going to deliver this strategy, if you can just scroll down to the next section. So we're going to deliver this strategy, and it's a live strategy. So as it goes through to cabinet, it's not the complete document that's going to say with a full action plan, this is what we're going to do, because part of this is the journey, and the important part is how we bring people with us, because as I said at the beginning, we can't do this on our own. We've tried, we can't, so we have to work in partnership with people. So we've got 2 phases of how we deliver this, and phase 1 is to look at in-house. So if you could just drop it a little bit, please, just so we get that whole, that's it, the whole onion in. So phase 1, working in-house with WNC. So this is really key for us. We're still a fairly new local authority. We're still bumping into new colleagues week on, week out. And people don't necessarily know what each other does. But there's so much work that goes on that contributes towards people being more active in departments that aren't necessarily at the heart and core of delivering physical activity every day. So we're trying to work through what we're calling a series of service conversations to start to unpick this and understand what business as usual looks like and how that contributes to people being more active, and then where those opportunities are and those gaps are where we can work in partnership and build. So we're going to do that in-house first. And we're doing it in-house first because I will go out and have conversations with partners, and I'll be like a happy puppy, and I will be really positive, and I'll want things to happen. But then there's more practical colleagues who may have a similar conversation with a similar partner, and it won't happen. So we've got to work that out in-house first, and we can get that in-house first, and we go collectively as WNC, and we have the conversations with our partners, and we can make things move. So then we go on to phase 2 once we've worked it out in-house, and phase 2 is then working with our wider partners. Now this will be a fair challenge because there are so many partners out there who do contribute to people living an active life, whether it be through sport, physical activity, whether it be through health interventions, adult and children's social care as well, for example. So it's something that we're going to work through, hence having a steering group to support us of sport, leisure, culture, public health and Northamptonshire sport as well, to make sure that, that we're getting some real valuable input into that development of the strategy journey. The idea B is, so as well as we go on this journey, is we gather champions. So one call out, I guess, for everybody around this table is that you become a champion and help us to deliver this journey with this strategy. So if you can just scroll down to the next bit, please. Those couple of pages there just describe that timeline of the phases that we're looking to work to. Then we've got in the how. So we map out then, again, going back to the place, to the people and the communication, where we've got those key ambitions and what we would like to achieve, what we think we should be able to see as we go through the strategy journey. And then your far right-hand column, they're just examples of some of the work that we've already got identified and underway that can help us to deliver that. If we can just scroll down past that one. And past that one, please. Thank you. So evaluation and learning, this is key to the strategy group and to how it can showcase back the input that physical activity and people moving more has. And this is work that, again, we'll do as a strategy group. We'll work with public health, we'll work with Northamptonshire Sport, and we'll work with the university to gather this information together and be able to provide this back. You'll get numbers back, you'll get some more innovative ways of sharing it back as well. And we talked the other day, myself and Chris, around video format and things like that that can really capture and engage people. So final couple of pages. Sorry, one up. There you go. This page here just talks through some of the strategies that we look to align ourselves with. So if you just see on the image that we've got there, there's some key there's the key national strategies that will help to drive us and steer us in the direction that we want to go, and then there's other local strategies, and then there's the in-service strategies. So just to sort of say, you know, again, we don't do this just in isolation. There's a huge amount of information out there. There's lots of activity taking place as well that directs us and gives us ideas. Down to the final page, so the governance is fairly key as to how we will drive this strategy throughout, because this isn't a strategy that was going to be written, look fantastic, everybody nod and agree with it, and then it sits on the shelf and it's just down to the service area to deliver. This is a strategy that is a partnership piece and stays alive, and it's that journey. And the delivery plan that I did attach as well to the strategy just again gives you a feel for some of the work that's coming out from the service conversations that we're having. So if you could just drop down please into the graphic, thanks. So what we'll set up is the strategy group at the moment will become a strategy board, and then we'll help to oversee lots of, there's a vast number of working groups and meeting groups that help to push and promote physical activity. So we'll have an oversight of those. We'll, as a group, check and challenge those, making sure that they're delivering what they suggest they should be delivering, and help to improve those. But making sure then that collective weight of everything that happens to encourage people to be more active and live an active life goes up through backs of groups, committees such as this. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you, Peter. That's really helpful. And I have to say a very important part of our community is keeping it healthy. Safe and healthy, as we know. And I think you indicated time, cost, and there was something else you mentioned in terms of considerations at the beginning of your presentation.
There was, yeah, time, cost, facilities, and the activity offer.
I'd also add weather to it and climate, because quite clearly it's not appealing sometimes to be outdoors, and as we know in terms of some of the time of the year, including our current one, it's really important to get that daylight and that fresh air where you possibly can and wrap up well. You've got some photographs within the report which is really good, which are encouraging, including dog walking on page 17, which is really important. And I have to say that all of us dog lovers love to be outside and getting covered in mud this time of the year, guaranteed. But it is important, and also I'd actually encourage you, if you can, to put local people in the photographs and local places, because we have then spaces identified to people who then engage better. And we've got some wonderful spaces and places with what obviously on offer and what's really important to them. Okay, thank you. I'll open up questions to the committee. Carl, thank you.
Thank you. Two questions for you. Page 12 of your document, by the way, it's a good. It was a good read this afternoon. Thank you very much. But I've just got two questions. One of them was when you're talking about how you will actually complete this strategy. One of the things says promote active travel opportunities identified through local transport plan and this LCWIPs, which is the local cycling. I'm okay with the local transport plan. I've seen that, but when I went to have a look at the cycling, and I can't remember what the acronym stands for.
LCWIP. Yeah.
Our website hasn't been updated since April 23, and things like Daventry and Northampton don't seem to be completed. So I don't know whether you know where these are at the moment, and any plan for completion, because that seems to be key for one of your strategies. My other question was, you talk about phase 2 in May 2025. Can I appeal to you, contact the parish councils, because the parish councils are quite active on this sort of thing. For instance, within West Hunsbury, we're tying up with things like Active Quarter, Space to Talk, and they're quite useful as a sort of spoke and hub. You can use the parish councils as a hub, and they'll certainly tell you other partners that are out there, but also the parish councils would like help from WNC to start communicating and promoting the things that they're involved in as well. So, yeah, two questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions from the committee members? Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Do you want to put your microphone on? Thanks. No, I'll bring the microphone closer to you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, I think this is a great strategy moving forward. I work with young people, and I can see that clearly they're embedded in it from a very early age, and obviously we aim for it to be, well, birth to death, basically. We want people of 70, 80 to be still feeling able and willing to go to the gym. And that is something we need, because core strength in itself and health and flexibility is something that we need. And at the moment we don't have that, and that's a fact. What we have is pots here and there of really good delivery, and in other places we don't have it. And people just basically are a bit jealous. That's just how it works. People become a little bit, they hear from Beryl how wonderful it is where they live. And that's just human nature. But what I can see here, it's really been well thought out as how you will deliver this in the future to everywhere. So I thank you for that, because it's really, really important. When you're talking about, again, and I do agree, when you're talking about who is delivering what in local areas, you clearly covered that. You're saying you're going to go out and you're going to talk to local partners. So thank you for that, because there's some great great things being done in local areas. What I would like to ask was just, too many people have poor mental health, well-being, and this is increasing. How?
Thank you, Sue.
No, I'd like the answer.
We'll put the answer, no problem. Thank you. Any further questions? No. Tony, thank you.
Going back on the active travel, yes, there are plans out there, but is there any link?
Put your microphone on.
There are active travel plans out there, the LC whips, but is there any link between driving this project forward to making sure that the LC whips are deployed?
Thank you. Okay, Peter, thank you. Don't worry about the LC whips point. Well, Esme can answer that, I'm sure, with all the talent there later on. Thank you.
Okay. I was going to say with the LC whips, from my own knowledge, I may, that there are some in development, and the team are, we're going to be talking about them, aren't we? Yep. Yeah. The team are engaging with those as well. So that's, I guess, a demonstration where that collaborative action is working and working well. And so, yeah. Sorry, my eyesight's getting really bad. I have to sort of sit back a bit. Parish councils, when we come to engage in phase 2, yes, most definitely. That onion graphic sort of tried to just highlight some of those key partners. We can't list them all, obviously, because it's going to be fairly challenging. I think the steering group have acknowledged that it will be fairly challenging and take a bit of time to go out and speak to everybody. But it's going to be that ongoing journey. But parish councils most definitely will be engaged through the various methods that we've got here. Yeah.
Super. Thank you, Peter. Sue, do you feel your question was answered?
Mental health. Well, no, I mean, I've worked on the mental health strategy, so I know in reality, but I think you should expand a bit further if you can on this. I don't think that it really is enough in there, and anybody that has a young person with a mental health issue or has suffered, I think that's just not enough. So I would suggest that a little more is put into that. I know why you may have been vague, but I also know that it's not really enough. So if you could just add maybe more as you go through, because I read it very, very keenly just because of that. So just add more, please.
Thank you, Sue. Peter, if you could take that on board and just take that back, that would be really helpful.
Take that on board. Yep.
Lovely. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Really appreciate it. And Dan, thank you much for spending the time, and hope that's okay and you can get to your next meeting as well.
Good. Thank you very much.
Smashing. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you all. Okay, item 5, which will go on to the progress reports. Thank you much indeed. Carl. Okay. No, not yet. You haven't had it yet. We've got our LTP team roaring up very shortly, so don't worry. They'll come back to it. They haven't forgotten that. Okay. Thank you much indeed for coming, team. Much appreciated. Thank you.
You might get home tonight.
Okay, item 5 is our progress reports and the waste update. Very happy to have several councillors here, but we've had, 3 Cabinet councillors here this evening. Very pleased to welcome Councillor Phil Larratt and Councillor Rebecca Breeze, also here as well. So thank you very much indeed for joining us. Okay, who would like to give us an update on this? Vanessa? No? Fiona? Fiona's wonderful. Do come and join us. Absolutely, yep. Please take a seat, definitely. No problem at all.
I think we're all slides maybe. Because I'm not going to talk about the local transport.
Not yet. You haven't read the brief then. Absolutely. Things change very fast here at West Northants. Okay, far away, Fiona. Lovely and welcome.
Thanks, Chair. So I'm Fiona Unett. I'm the Assistant Director for Waste, and there's 2 updates to give you this evening. The first one is on the resources and waste strategy. This one we talked at length at a recent members update. So with your permission, Chair, I'm not going to go through this one slide by slide. If you would like the full presentation from Vanessa, not from me, then feel free to look back at the recording of the meeting. But just to pull out some highlights from that one. The strategy was adopted in November 23, so we've had a full year now to complete the first annual action plan, and within the presentation there is line by line that action plan with all of the measures that we've taken against it. We are obviously going to do an annual action plan on an ongoing basis, and the final slide of the presentation talks about Tracy, it's the other presentation, sorry, there were two for waste. But the final slide for the waste strategy presentation talks about the actions that we're planning to take this year. And they include, if I just read them out, there's the mobilisation of the residual waste and HWRC contracts, which I'll talk about in a second.
So it's all on page 15 of our papers this evening.
Thank you. Well done. You're navigating. We are also planning to do a review of the infrastructure that we have to try and make sure that we make best use of the 4 councils coming together and the infrastructure that we have. We will be focusing on encouraging residents to use their food waste recycling service, and there's some measures that we're planning to take in terms of comms and also some sort of physical incentives for residents as well, like giving them some liners to encourage them to use that service. We will be harmonising how we collect textiles across West Northants, and we'll also be looking at the possibility of developing a facility to sort the recyclables for West Northants as well. But perhaps the biggest piece of work, and the one that most members I'm sure will be interested in, is around a review of the waste collection and street cleansing arrangements, because we have inherited the arrangements from the predecessor authorities. They expire in 2028, so we are giving ourselves plenty of time to focus on a review of those services this year. And then, depending on what comes out, whether we're going to procure outsourced services or bring them in-house, that will be one of the things that we consider, but it gives us plenty of time to implement whatever those considerations are. So, with Councillor Bruce's permission, can I just headline that we're... Yes, is that all right? So when we developed the waste strategy, we had a number of members involved in developing that, and we'd like to do something similar in terms of reviewing the waste collection service. So I'm sure there'll be a conversation about which members we'd like involved.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Fiona.
The second part of the update is around the procurement, if I may. That is on a separate presentation, so apologies for the slight confusion. Well done, Tracy, for finding the right presentation. Again, the first couple of slides really talk about process. So I won't dwell on those too much because you've had the opportunity to have a look at those slides. But just to reassure everyone that we've, over the last year, we've been procuring 2 new contracts, one for the treatment of residual waste and one for the household waste recycling centre services. They were both due to expire, or they are both due to expire, 31st of March this year. And we've gone through a very robust process with input from our internal procurement and legal colleagues. We've also had some external advisors. So we've gone through a competitive process. We have now identified, we're at the final stages of that process, we've identified preferred bidders, and with sincere apologies, I'm not in a position to be able to name those organisations this evening because the procurement process is very constrained and we're in what's called the standstill period at the moment. However, we are planning to take a paper to Cabinet in February, by which point we should be allowed to name those. What I would like to do, though, is just run through the highlights without naming the preferred bidders, hopefully, if I have no slip of the tongue. So the highlight for both of those contracts, that we've really achieved a good outcome for both residual waste and household waste recycling centres. So for residual waste, we have a contract which will treat more than 95% of residual waste, which obviously minimises any waste that goes to landfill. We have an organisation who will operate the Brackmills Waste Transfer Station, very much like a commercial waste transfer station, and recover waste for recycling, moving it up the hierarchy. We don't have any minimum tonnage or composition guarantee, which means we will not be restricting recycling at the curbside. And all of those, that's a really good quality solution for residual waste at a really good cost. The contract which residents interact directly with is obviously the recycling centres. So we have 6 of those in West Northants. And our new contract will allow those sites to operate 7 days a week, which is an increase from the current 5. Their operating hours will be from 10 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock each day. And those changes to operating hours are in a direct response to the consultation that we did as part of the waste strategy. We'll be taking a step change in performance there, so we'll be recycling at least 62% of waste, and we'll have an increased emphasis on reuse as well. So that's recovering materials that could be resold or repurposed. So both those contracts are due to start 1st of April. As I say, overall, we're really pleased. We think we've got really good quality services with improved performance, improved customer services, all at an affordable cost. I'll pause there.
Super, thank you very much indeed. Rebecca, would you like to add anything at all?
No, well, yes, actually, because I think Fiona mentioned to me last week, which you didn't mention, but the change in the residual waste that's coming in February for Northampton, with the waste in sacks is moving to wheeled bins imminently for certain areas in Northampton, which are...
So we currently have many areas in Northampton that are covered by bags because they don't have access to them or their apartments, etc. So what is the plan then from April?
They're moving to bins.
So this is for properties historically who can't accommodate a wheeled bin. So we will be moving 2,000 of those properties from a sack collection over to a wheeled bin. That is just one phase. Hopefully we will be able to extend that, but that's with support from our contractor Veolia.
Just to confirm then, if they couldn't accommodate a wheel bin previously, how are we making that change?
So any properties that still can't accommodate a wheel bin will remain on a sack collection.
Right.
Just to be clear.
Okay,
yeah.
so it's not an enforced wheel bin, but obviously it's a desirable situation if we possibly can to manage it better for them.
Yes, thank you.
Great, that's excellent. Like I saw the recycling truck come past my door a couple of days ago and it said energy not waste, which is really important. So where we possibly can create a super opportunity going forward and help our planet and everything we possibly can, and recycling more is phenomenal. So I encourage you to do that, and I'm very pleased to hear the plans. Question from the committee. Tony, thank you.
Thank you. Excellent presentation as usual. Just want to clear something up in my mind regarding textiles and recycling and versus the charity shops. Have we got a strategy about the textile recycling versus charity shops?
We're very happy for residents to take their textiles to charity shops because from there they will be reused. What we're trying to do is capture any materials that residents might find it more convenient just to put in their wheeled bin. So we did a waste composition analysis earlier on this year, and there are still textiles going into the wheeled bin, despite the fact that many of us receive those charity bags coming round quite regularly. So what we're trying to do is just make sure that every resident in West Northants has got access to a textile collection service from their curbside. But if residents prefer to take those materials to charity shops, that's absolutely fine as well, as long as they're getting reused and they're not just going into the residual bin.
Thank you.
Super, thank you. Any further questions? Carl?
Yeah. Thank you. Not working.
Come on.
The move to 3 weekly collections, I presume that's going to kick in 2028. Is that likely to be derailed from anything from central government? Because I did hear something about we're going to dictate the number of collections and number of bins you can have. That's one question. The other one, not really a question, just you might be pleased to know that West Hunsbury Parish Council, we're having a food, waste and composting day on the 25th of January. So we are promoting it quite actively locally to try and increase the amount of food waste that is going on. And thirdly, it might sound a bit cheeky, but is there any chance of a visit to a recycle centre? I'm fascinated by it, and I would really love to know more and then be able to sort of communicate that to the residents. Thank you.
Hey, Carl. Any further questions at all? Sue?
Yes. Just wanted to know what the increase, if I believe there is an increase, because everybody does it where I live in not West Hunsbury, Brackley, is the residual waste. And a clear plastic bag is now the most wanted item in my town, so that they can stick things on their wheelie bin and have them taken away. So I take it there is a vast increase in people taking them away.
Lovely. Thank you. Fiona. Rebecca.
Okay, I'm going to take those in order because I'm going to think about the last answer. So 3 weekly collections. Would you like me to take that one, or do you want to take that one? I don't mind.
Well, I'll contribute something.
Go on.
Oh, your microphone's not on. Rebecca. Thank you. That's it.
I have been participating with Fiona and sort of a group of other local authorities who would prefer to move to a 3 weekly because of the various benefits, and it appears that we are going to be allowed to proceed along that path. So
Thank you.
that's as far as we understand at the moment.
Okay. That's it. Lovely, thanks.
And whether we go 3 weekly will be part of the review, but obviously there are a number of benefits of doing that, and residents in Daventry are quite strong advocates for the system now that they've adopted it. West Hunsbury promotion, very interested to hear about that. I'll pass that information on to our waste education officers. They may be able to support you if you'd like some support. In terms of visit to the recycling centre, sorry to be really pedantic and nerdy about this, do you mean a facility where all of the waste is sorted into the different... Okay, so we can see what we can do to organise that, because our materials from South and Daventry areas now go to Coventry, so not far away. So we can see what we can do to facilitate that one. And then finally, with regard to seeing an increase, is it a particular material that's getting put out in clear plastic bags?
In Brackley, there's definitely an increase in electronics, I would say. Definitely, small electronics is definitely... I've been supporting it, but I know for a fact those clear plastic bags, you know, they snap them up from the library. Possibly they could be cheaper. I'm just saying. But yeah, that is one of the most asked questions. Anybody got a clear plastic bag? It's bin day. So to me, that's a good sign.
So the clear plastic bag is a system that we use for waste electronic and batteries as well, and residents can put those materials on top of their bin. Yes, we have seen an increase, especially since we harmonised it across West Northants, because it means we can do that comms across for all residents, so we have that big hit. In terms of the bags that residents buy from libraries, that's for food waste liners, I think.
No, it's not. I'm in the library every single week, week in, out, and no, they are for electrical items.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Alison, did you have a comment?
I don't have a question. But
oh, your mic.
Your
mic.
Oh, I don't have a question. What I would like to say is a comment. I have 14 villages, and the comments about the recycling centres, well done, star marks. Everybody seems to be very happy the way it's going. Yes, it means they've got to get in their car and they must drive. When they get there, they say they're met with courtesy, and it's so much more organised than it ever was before.
Thank you, Alison. And I'd absolutely agree with that, definitely.
Good.
James.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back to the 3 weekly collections thing, because I think this is going to be a big issue that, you know, will affect Northampton especially, because obviously we're still on the 2 weekly collections. Whatever solution is decided upon during the consultation process, will it be a all West Northants solution, or will there be potential for differences around the different areas? Because clearly rural and urban areas do have different needs. Thanks.
So this was something that we talked about when we were developing the strategy, in terms of making sure that the service was tailored for individual housing types. So flats or terrace houses, for example, would certainly need, we'd need to look at different solutions for those kind of properties.
Super. Thank you very much, Fiona. Rebecca, would you like to add?
Yes, can I ask a question of Carl?
Please do.
Thank you. Your Hunsbury Action Day, was that prompted by perhaps our climate change strategy? Sorry, ours, the one we did in association with the Town Council.
It was a direct result of that.
It was a direct result. Oh, that's great, because I've got a meeting tomorrow with that group and it'd be useful to report back. Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much indeed. Well, thank you, Fiona. Really appreciate the presentation. Rebecca, thank you for coming this evening. It really is important to us all, and we know that the openness that we have in terms of that consultation around the strategy is so important. I know that when we visited the MRF not so long ago, how important the development, the opportunity of recycling and absolutely using the maximum amount, or reusing and recycling, is really critical. We shouldn't take it for granted. There wasn't that many years ago when people looked strangely upon others who collected milk bottle tops or newspapers as aliens. Well, we're not aliens. We do recycle where we possibly can. I'm really glad to hear about the plans going forward. Fantastic. Thank you. Super. Okay, item 5B, Highways Contract Oversight Working Group. Tony, over to you for an update. And thank you, obviously, for including it within the papers today.
Okay. You've got a report in the papers, which is a summary of where we stood over the...
Page 23, for anyone who's trying to find it.
Thank you, page 2300. It's where we've looked at it over the last 6 months. Just a few comments to add. First of all, some of you will have now seen there is an app on the phones or on the PCs under something called WISE. This is the West Interactive Street Explorer, so you can see exactly what is going on out there and where the issues are being dealt with. There's been one observation made, and perhaps Stuart, you can take this one back, that although it's very good on tablets and PCs, the definition on phones is not so good. I'm not sure what we can do, but perhaps we can just look at how that works, and could we do something slightly different where the phone's being used, which is the way perhaps the majority of the population are using these days. So that's one point. Things are going reasonably well, but unfortunately we can get tripped up. I think, Stuart, you've probably got a comment on this as well. And there's been an unfortunate video issued in the last few days on TikTok, which shows very clearly a West North Hants operative, Kia or WNC, like they're dancing on a pothole, filling the material in. I think you've been briefed on this.
I've absolutely been briefed.
Right. So it's unfortunate it's happened. I don't know what we're doing to rectify that problem and recover some sense. So that's one comment. A couple of other things around it. If we look at the repair situation of the roads today compared to this time last year, and I did speak to Leon earlier today in the absence of Sam, basically confirming that where the repairs have been done in the last 12 months, the weather does not seem to have affected them, where previously we have seen deterioration. But this is mainly in the towns and the larger confines. We've got quite a bit of damage in the more rural areas, which we need to start to focus on. And I've already highlighted some fairly serious ones, particularly in the Middleton Cheney area. Just, I didn't say that because you were here, Rebecca, but that's fact.
We had Morton Cheney area too.
But nevertheless, it comes back to we need to start focusing on that area. I can see why it's probably gone in one direction. It's easier and quicker to do some of the stuff where it's in one place. We now need to change that. And my final comment was probably just around that, is we need to focus on the rural roads now, etc. So generally, a reasonable picture. We've had a couple of failures I know of, but then that's always going to be the case, and they will be repaired. But generally, the repairs that were done last year appear to be holding.
Lovely. Thank you, Tony, and thank you for chairing the Highways and Contract Oversight Group as well. Appreciate the update on that. That's really helpful.
Can I
Stuart.
add something?
Okay, and then I'll bring Stuart in. Yep.
Stuart?
No, Alison first.
Okay. I think the one excellent thing about it started with Sam, as far as I'm concerned, the reporting to fix my street has made all the difference in the world, and therefore mistakes in the rural areas are picked up, but at least they're known of, whereas before they certainly weren't.
Thank you. Stuart. Oh, sorry, I've got Sue, first of all.
Oh, yeah.
Sue.
Sorry.
Thank you. Tony and I work quite closely on the roads that are affected in Brackley, and although I'd definitely like to say we've seen work in Brackley, I don't think we've seen work of a high standard in Brackley. What we've seen is, we've definitely seen the saying, you know, what's the saying? It was something around common sense, Tony. Making a choice to do common sense when
use common sense.
Use common sense when placing a pothole or mending a pothole. However, I cannot say that this has actually worked out when I have a disintegrating pathway or a pothole, which is then surrounded by a complete pathway that is failing because the works van parked on it for 3 days. And then has caused more damage, and now I've got to report that, and that will then be a further issue to us. It doesn't make sense, and this is down a complete road where actually it was closed and actually would have been quicker to actually just do the whole pavement. I don't think we're using that motto to the best that we could. And I do understand that when you're looking at it systematically, it's 7 holes and that will be done. But actually it's turned out to be a lot more money than that, and it's not the only area where that is turning out. Some areas of footpaths and roads have more disintegration around them, and we maybe have to pull that particular saying apart a little bit more, because at first it was very inflexible and now we are flexible, but I think we just need to look a little bit more at how we can be more sensible with that flexibility around the repairs we're making. Not turn around and go, we're doing a terrible job. Just look at it and be more sensible again. Because we're sending people to do a job that is on their sheet, so they're not going to look and say, I'm going to do this whole pavement, because they're not allowed.
Okay, I'll bring Stuart on that one. Thank you. Just to remind us all, this is an update on the Highways Contract Oversight Working Group that Tony chairs. So if you have any items you'd like to bring to Tony's attention out of this meeting, that's a good place to do it. And he can then follow it up, obviously, with those officers as well. But Stuart's here. So Stuart, the saviour.
There's one here. Andre.
I know, but Stuart.
Yeah, and I think it's right and proper we do come back on the TikTok unfortunate video that went round. January the 8th, a supervisor went out on site to look at an area, or it was a pothole that had already been raised for a permanent repair. He thought while he was there he would provide some fix and a quick fix. So unfortunately what he did is he filled the pothole in a way which isn't a standard, shouldn't have been done, etc, etc. Yep, and apologies for that, and Kia have very much said that an internal investigation will happen. It is a one-off, as we understand. Normally temporary repairs are done with a particular process and a particular machine. That wasn't in this case. It's a case of somebody who tried to be helpful and it's backfired, and therefore that won't ever happen again, I have been assured.
But the worst case was somebody videoed it.
And that's why we should always stick to process, and why we should always use the correct mechanisms, etc, going forward. So again, apologies. I think it is embarrassing that that video is out there. It is embarrassing to Kia that they've been found that that practice has happened there. And again, I think the investigation and the actions that will happen will make sure that that doesn't happen in the future. But that wouldn't have been, as I said, it was a temporary repair. It was only ever going to be a temporary repair, but even that is unacceptable, and we have told Kia that in no certain terms.
Unfortunately, Stuart, it was picked up by one of our supporters in Brackley and one of our interferers.
And I don't really mind that who's picked it up. I think the fact it's being picked up is of use to us, and I thank the people who've raised it with us. So again, we've resolved that, and that will not happen again. So I think that is the case, Tony. In terms of the footpath and the road, sorry, Sue, I think I would like to come out or get one of the managers to come out, because we are evolving. I think the fact that we are now talking about different problems that we were talking about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we continue to work with Kia as partners in developing better answers to problems. So let's look at that. I think the footpath and road, it's different machinery, it's different processes, etc. But nevertheless, I think it's about customer expectation. So I'd happily, either myself or Nick Henstock or Sam Simons will come out and walk that road and understand where can we improve. Continuous improvement has got to be a big factor in this particular contract. And I think we've seen that month on month, we are looking at different ways, different mechanisms, different investments, etc. So I'd happily come out, or one of us will come out and just understand that the specific problems there, because I'd love to pick up and see how we could do better. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Stuart.
You for that.
Carl and then William.
Thank you. The website's good, like it. It does work better on a PC. There is a lot of data on there, so I can understand why it doesn't work on a phone. Just a reminder, the wards are changing in May, so somebody will have to change all the parameters. Question for Tony. Just curious from our group, how often does the oversight group meet? And are the minutes available, or do you just do a summary to this group?
A summary to the group, it meets every 6 months.
6 months, okay, thank you.
Thank you. William.
This TikTok thing sounds to me as if the guy used his common sense. I've got some stuff, I haven't got a machine, I've got a hole, let's stomp it in. Yeah. Yeah. And
that was certainly his interpretation.
yeah, fine, okay. Yes. And just going on to footpaths since they've been raised, I've heard it said in several meetings, and it may even have said at our last oversight working group meeting, something about Kia only being funded to do, whatever do means, 3 pavements a year. And that sounds a bit weird. Can we just fact check that one? And if it's not true, stop saying it.
We had that raised, in fact, at a previous meeting, Stuart. Thank you, William.
It's entirely up to the council what we want to do, and every year we do a review of how many roads, etc., etc. I mean, this year we're doing a whole programme of footpaths, and I think they have been released to members, and we know which footpaths they are. I think next year we again will continue footpath work as we go forward, because of the improvements we've seen in the road that Tony has referred to. So as the priorities change, so will the works that Kia will do change, which is a completely reverse of what the previous contract was, which was very much this is what you pay for and this is what you will get, and you will get that every year. So the flexibility is in the gift, if you like, of the council in ensuring we get the right priorities done.
Okay, so basically it's, you could say it's need-based and not being inhibited by arbitrary quotas.
Absolutely.
Jolly good, thanks.
Lovely. Thank you much, William. Tony, final point?
Slightly on that. Somehow that did get into the circulation of discussion. My understanding of it was we were looking at a total replacement of a footpath, and an example of that was where they would put the old paving slabs where cars had driven over them, and we had to replace, basically it's not just a street, but it was an area, and that's where I think the 3 came in, as opposed to repairing small bits or large pieces of pavement. But there are areas in Northampton where the paving slabs are hideous.
Lovely. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate the update on that. That's very helpful indeed. Thank you, Stuart, for your content as well there. Okay, on to our final item, practically, or penultimate item, which is on flooding, 5C flooding. So thank you very much indeed for your help, James. So I'd like to welcome Councillor Phil Larratt. Thank you for joining us, Cabinet Member. And also Stuart Timmis for giving us an overview, if you can, on that.
So not really an overview, Chair, as such. This is just a very quick update in terms of a piece of work that we're going to do. So we did a presentation to EPB following the floods in November. So as everyone will know, we had floods from the 21st to the 23rd of September. That was very much concentrated on the town and indeed Billing Aquadrome as is norm. On the 24th of November, we got a much wider flooding event that covered not just the town, but the train station, Harleston, Milton Cheney, Woodford Hulse, Weedon, Kizzelinbury, Harpole, Toaster, Dunstan, Darlington, Farcotton. It was much wider. So what we're doing is we're setting up a group. That includes the Environment Agency, it includes all of the water authorities, it includes fire, it includes Kia in terms of our response, etc. And just to let members know that we're not just sitting on the fact that we've had a number of events, that we've actually starting to pull that group together to look at three key areas. They are, as I've just said there, the review of the response, the forecast, weather forecast actually didn't predict flooding. So again, we just need to look at and change our priorities in terms of just our preparedness in regard to that. We need to look at community resilience, and there's some really good experience there of community resilience. We now need to look at this across the whole of West Northants and how we can empower parish councils with the availability of assets such as sandbags, etc., providing the correct information and to which wider communities than currently exist. And then there's the third element, which is the looking ahead. It's looking at the flood investigations that we've already started on each and every one of the communities affected. It's looking at how we can pull together action plans as a result of that work from the investigations, and hopefully looking at the engineering that will be required. We were the only red flood warning in England in November. So therefore, we're hopeful that will push us up the priority lists of government. Government have put, I think it's £2.1 billion of monies away for flooding. So what we're doing is looking at that as the third area. So review of response, community resilience, and looking at the future mitigations we can put in place as a result of that. So really all I'm here to do is say that work will start. It's already, we've had a number of conversations with those partners. They're all up for that. We will be working with the North as well because of the geographies, and Environment Agency don't want two separate conversations when actually it's the same problem. And we'll come back to scrutiny with updates as and when we have those, and key points and as and when we have them. So really nothing to sort of debate there, just an information only on basis of what we're doing there.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Stuart. And quite clearly, there's more coming to a later meeting, as we've discussed, and certainly it's something that affects a very wide community area, and particularly, obviously, us in West Northamptonshire. Rebecca, did you want to put a point forward?
I was just going to point out it's in my portfolio.
Thank you very much. There's been a handover during the term, as we know from that point of view, but thank you for looking after the environment. Absolutely. So we'll look forward to welcoming you both to a future meeting in terms of more detail as we go through. But partnership working is absolutely crucial, we know, and certainly working across the county of Northamptonshire, but also the surrounding counties that we have will really also produce better results, hopefully, for all. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, I'd like to go on now to the... I have a question. Sure, Sue. It was an overview, but feel free.
Thank you. I'd just like to know how many flooding wardens we have, if somebody could just let me know.
Okay, we can take that back if you...
Sorry, in terms of wardens?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I put that out to my town quite early on last year. it would have been last year, wouldn't it? Yeah. And I just wondered just how many we have, where we have them, and then if you're going to have some form of training for the flood warners, I think it's imperative that again you share it with, it's said over and over again, with councillors so we can share it. Maybe even we go along, but we encourage those people that may be a little bit tentative about doing it. But yeah, why shouldn't we know what would happen? Because then when we're asked the question, it's helpful.
This is the fire alarm drill that we were talking about, and the Commissioner...
We think.
we hope.
Sorry, if I may.
Yes, please do. Yep.
And that's exactly the point of this working group, is to make sure that it isn't just focused in those areas that have been flooded previously. It is a much wider approach to making sure that, again, it's flooding has largely been in and around rivers, but now what we're seeing is the capacity of drainage, etc., has been as big a problem as river flooding. So we need to make sure that all our communities have information and preparedness, if you like, in terms of this. So it is a patchwork quilt at the moment in terms of wardens. Yeah.
Thanks, Stuart. Okay, what we're going to do, Tony, I'm going to hold you there if I may, because we're going to come back on a larger item in terms of this, obviously later on at our future meeting. But I'm going to bring in now, because I'm concerned about the fire alarms being commissioned earlier than we were told, is I'm going to bring in our very patient team, the local transport team, who have been waiting, Penny and Esme, for quite some time. So thank you very much indeed if you'd like to join us at the table. There is a presentation which you can have. I know Alison just popped out to speak with security to confirm that we don't have to leave the building before you start.
I think it was a mistake.
Lovely. Okay, what we're going to do is we'll whizzle on through this. Thank you very much for bearing with us. Much
8
appreciated.
o'clock they were due to set it.
They are. So we've got about 30 minutes thereabouts. Thank you very much indeed. Who would like to make the presentation?
We did a study on people that sat in a room, you know. We did a study on people that sat in a room when an alarm went off. and they measured their IQ.
Okay, so Penny, Esme, who would like to lead on this?
I shall lead on this.
Thank you very much indeed.
Sorry. I'm checking myself. I'm not saying it, but...
Okay, far away.
It's already been
Far away.
Penny Mould, Highways and Transport Planning Manager. I'm just going to move through the presentation quite swiftly because we have come to you before back in the summer with the draft LTP, and so the LTP has a series of themes and objectives, and those are set out there. Would you like to move to the next slide, please? Also has a series of policy areas, of which there are 16. Again, can we move to the next slide, please? And we have undertaken a 3-month consultation on the document over the summer, which is what we came to speak to you about before within Scrutiny Committee. And that previous slide set out how we consulted and when that was, and then this other slide that we're now on sets out the consultation that we undertook and who it was with, and one thing and another, and that we did in-person events and members' briefings and a load of forums and that sort of thing, which are all in this presentation that I'm sure you can have a look at if you haven't already. Now, this slide covers the consultation responses and who we received those from. Can we move to the next slide, please? Who we received those from other than residents of West Northamptonshire. And the next slide covers the parish councils that we received responses from. So a good mix across the district. I'm then going to miss the next few slides and move to slide 11, please. So within the consultation, we asked respondents to say whether they supported the vision, the objectives and the policies within the document. And as you can see from this slide, there was overall support for those measures. So a very positive response to the strategy. Can we move to the next slide, please? So the common themes that were supported was top with over 460 responses were bus services and rural bus services. At 224 were general responses. And I'll just add in here, we had 460 oh no, that was the bus responses. I've got it written down somewhere else. We had, well, I'll come back to that, how many responses we had when I look at something else. Well, we
413.
had over, yeah, but we had over 800 odd responses individually that we had to code about different topics. But yeah, so quite a few. Active travel again came out quite highly at 175. Policy generally, accessibility and equality. Delivery and funding was a concern for people because there was concerns that, you know, we'd previously said that we would do things within the previous local transport plan that haven't been delivered because of lack of funding. The environment's important to people, and as was traffic generally, and so on. And as you can see, right down to, and interestingly, matters such as parking, very low on the list, which was quite a surprise, really. So, if we move to the next slide, this slide sets out how we're going to take the measures forward within the revised local transport plan in light of the consultation. So the modifications came in various different areas, and we had those relating to policy and policy measures modifications, and these covered 20 miles an hour zones, autonomous vehicles, redundant rail infrastructure, cycling, rights of way, disability and biodiversity. So where those issues touched on policies or policies interventions, we are going to improve those areas within the document and have revised them appropriately. The next area was interventions. As you could see from the previous slide about the respondents, we had over 460 respondents about rail and rural bus, about bus services, including rural bus services. And we are using those to inform the wider public transport team and future BSIP strategies, bus improvement plans, and so we will use them in that way. Another intervention that we're going to alter within the document is how we take forward the Northampton Growth Management Scheme. National Highways, in their response to us, have asked that we delay any decisions on that and defer it for future study in line with the local plan. We were also asked in relation to 2 bypasses across the West Northamptonshire, one being at Fotheringhay and one being at Cold Ashby. Neither of these are proposed to be taken forward. Fotheringhay has, within the mitigations for the plan, a mitigation scheme, which will be delivered within the short term, and that is what we have said in the plan we would do, and that is how we intend to proceed. Cold Ashby, again, will be taken forward within the town and village traffic calming programme, which again is an intervention within the plan. So they will all have some form of action, but there is neither the time nor the resources to deliver full bypasses. Another area of the plan which has been deferred for further study is the Northampton Northern Orbital. Again, this will be taken forward with a local plan when we have a new transport model and we can come up with an understanding of where growth will be and how best to take that forward. So again, that is deferred for future study. The final area of amendment is relating to the integrated assessments, which supported the plan. And we had a member of the public really go to town on these, on the SEA, and we've got the environmental consultants to look at their response, and they have picked up those comments within the SEA statement, which will support the adopted LTP. So that is a very quick whistle-stop through the consultation report. Over to questions.
Thank you, Penny. I'd like to know why on page 272, when it has an area of WNCLTP LL0308 A45 Wootton interchange will be deferred for future study. A rather important Northampton Growth Management Scheme project. Can you give us an idea on that, please, if you wouldn't mind?
So, the growth management scheme, as I say, National Highways in their response has asked that we defer that for future study. So that is what we're going to do. Because with the local plan and revision to where growth will go and a new transport model, we may come up with some revised ideas. Some of what is presently within the growth management scheme is not necessarily what we would do today. It's rather dated now, so...
Right. I'm concerned because obviously we have an impact of around about 2,500, 3,000 homes in that area overall, and it really is quite a key junction point that affects both north and south areas of Northampton and Northamptonshire, in fact, everything coming through that area. So it would be really reassuring to members of certainly my wards of East Hunsey, West Hunsby and Coventry areas to understand what's happening there. Thank you.
Can I?
Sorry, Bill.
Sorry, yeah. Thank you. I mean, the growth management study, we have been asked to revisit it. First of all, there's not enough money in the pot to do what's required, considering inflation, etc., that's taken place. There's things in there that are no longer necessary. For example, the issue of the upgrade of the Brackmills interchange. And I declare an interest as a director of the Brackmills bid, but I did raise the issue with all the directors, and since COVID and the amount of traffic, particularly Barclaycard and people like that, they're not getting the congestion down there that they did. So I think, you know, the view of Brackmills bid is resurface the junction and we're happy, we don't need any improvements. So the whole thing has to be revisited. As you know, we're working very much on the Queen Eleanor interchange as being the priority because of the congestion that's there and the requirement for that to be done in order to accommodate the housing. But you're absolutely right, the Wootton interchange is important, and that's obviously going to have to feature highly because there are requirements of the Coventry SUE, etc., to do things with that junction. So that will obviously have to feature highly within the review in order to bring that forward.
Thank you. Can we have any idea when the review will be coming through on that?
Well, it will have to make part of the evidence base for the local plan. So we have had discussions internally on what that evidence base might look like. So I'm imagining that it will be, you know, it will be in parallel with the development of the local plan, because it is such an important piece of infrastructure.
So will the developments such as the Vistry Homes development, etc., contribute their 106s into that? Because they have already
I think
entered
they've
into agreement.
contributed into the growth management strategy.
Yes.
Is my understanding. But as that development grows, traffic is getting worse. And that's why I think Wootton needs to be top of the list as part of the review of the growth management strategy.
Because we were assured that that would come through.
I mean, development is really impacting on that as opposed to the other junctions.
Thank you very much, Phil. Okay, I'm just going to bring, we've got, sorry, who have we got? James Povey on the screen joining us here. Good evening, James. James can't be with us, but James can be with us virtually. So, James, if you'd like to come in, you're the Transport and Strategy Development Manager, I believe.
Yeah, that's it. Good evening. Sorry, apologies I couldn't be with you today.
No
I was just going to elaborate. Obviously, Councillor Larratt covered most of it. The contributions have already been secured from a number of developments in Northampton for the NGMS anyway, so that's not going anywhere. We will have our new strategic traffic model available in July. That's going to be obviously used for the new local plan evidence base. It'll also be a key evidence base for reviewing the NGMS programme as well. So we'll get an up-to-date understanding on traffic levels at those junctions, forecast traffic levels at those junctions, and we can have a better understanding about which order to tackle those junctions in and what sort of improvements are required at each of them. Because obviously the work's going to be very disruptive when we actually do them, very expensive as well, so it's important we get an up-to-date understanding as to what's required there, so it causes minimum disruption as possible and ensure that the improvements are long-lasting. So that's all I want to say just on that point of regarding the NGMS.
Lovely. Thank you, James. Much appreciated. That's very helpful. Stuart, you want to come in there?
No, I think the question's been answered.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. Alison.
I may be barking up the wrong tree, but when it comes to devolution, is this not going to take us down another path and an alternative vision for us locally?
As I understand it, there'll be a local transport plan for the region, and we will feed into that, and they will have to pick up on our transport plan, and I think the combined authority will be able to set its own strategic road network. That may have an impact. I mean, we've got National Highways have their network. The combined authority will have a strategic network. That may well come under the mayor as opposed to the local, all the composite local authorities. So yes, there are challenges, but day-to-day highway maintenance, etc., will be very much the same. The biggest likely change will be in the provision of transport, because the devolution and mayoral authorities, it will be a lot easier to take on bus routes, take over bus services, etc., etc. So I think transport is the key area of change as opposed to the highway network, although there will be some impact.
Lovely.
Stuart, did you want to add anything?
Just one thing, Farthinghoe. Not Farthinghoe or Farthinghoe?
Farthinghoe.
It is Farthinghoe. It's all right.
Yes, yep.
The problem we have with Farthinghoe, and it's a long ongoing issue, and the case just does not stack up. And I have to say, Mr. Chairman, we as an authority have invested more money than we would in any other business case in order to try and make it work. We provided a very detailed business case for Andrea Ledson when she was the MP, which she took to ministers, etc., and it just got us nowhere. The business case just does not stack up. If Farthinghoe were prepared to accept 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 houses, more even. They'll probably get the bypass. Yes. But under current rules, it's just not going to happen. And I'm afraid Cold Ashby falls into the same pot. So it's very, very difficult. We have got other options available for Farthinghoe, traffic lights, etc. They're not keen on that, although we're going to have a public meeting fairly soon, hopefully, to bottom it out. But there are options there to overcome the challenges that narrow road presents. And, you know, I've seen the photographs of the accidents and the impact of things down there. And I know Tony's regularly there looking, and I've been there as well to look at it. It is a very problematic stretch of road, and yeah, we really should be doing something. The offer's on the table to the local residents. It's up to them if they want that mitigation or not.
Lovely. Thank you, Phil. Tony.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil, for explaining something I was just going to explain. But what is concerning me in the way the slide is written is the sort of bluntness of it, which says not to be taken forward. I think we should leave it slightly open. Whether it's a bypass or whether it's some other solution, we've got to look at the bigger picture here. And the bigger picture is the developments that are going on around. And I don't know how we work this, but Farthinghoe are in the middle of some major developments. There's a big appeal going on at the junction 11 of the M40. Now, my take is, just my personal view, that will be approved. Now, that is going to create a lot more traffic. We've got the Baynard Green sheds. Again, it's not in West Northants, South Northants. It is in Cherwell. That is going to create more traffic. We've got major housing developments sort of on the edge in Brackley at the moment. My take is with the new government, they will be given the go-ahead. That is going to create thousands of more traffic movements in that area. That is all going to come back onto Farthinghoe. So to say it's not in the plan, full stop, I think there should be softening in that statement that should things change, it will be re-looked at.
Thank you, Tony. Stuart.
I think it's semantics, Tony. I think, I mean, what we've said is the local transport plan is what we produce, in which all our grant funding, etc., is based. So that's our request to government, setting out our very clear ask of where the money is going to be spent, etc., etc. We've, as Phil has identified, we've done all of the work behind that. It's not the place for the LTP to put in undeliverable schemes, but that's all that says. We will not take it forward in the LTP. Should the position change so dramatically that becomes viable, of course we'll pick that up. But again, as I think we've alluded to, the proposition for that, or the likelihood of that, given where road building is in the UK, given where funding is in the UK, even despite all of that development, it's very unlikely that we'll see that coming forward. But should that happen, then we'll always, that door is always open on any of these opportunities. If we can align the need with the money, then cost will deliver. Why wouldn't we deliver on that? But as I say, I don't want to raise expectations on that at all, because the expectations is very, 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 very limited, Tony. So again, let's be clear on that as well.
So three of us in this room will end up with a pay stink before too long, standing Farthinghoe. I'll leave it like that.
Sorry, and I've been there many times, and I'm more than happy to front that, because I'd like to do something in Farthinghoe. I'd like to put a solution that will mitigate some of those issues. All we need is that resident support, because we've always said in Farthinghoe we will not do anything that hasn't got the support of residents. So we're there. We're looking at different mitigations in terms of traffic calming going in. We're looking at traffic lights. We've looked at different opportunities, but the opportunity we have looked at and we've done to death is the bypass. There just ain't that money there.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Any further points or questions anyone would like to raise?
When's the meeting? When's the meeting at Farthinghoe?
I'm going to discuss it.
It's not diarised yet.
Okay, it's not diarised.
It's due.
When it happens, please.
So yes.
You mentioned the amount of how many you've had to filter. We're in the general questions. 224 general replies. Can we have an idea of what were in those general replies?
Thank you, Esme.
Have mine.
Yep, it's on. Oh, it was on. Okay.
Try mine. No.
No, the one next to you maybe. Just try Esme, the one on your left. That's it. That's it. Yes.
I just say that because anybody's ever taken the time to fill in a consultation.
Yeah, if you turn yours off.
Yeah. Doesn't do it lightly.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Got there in the end. Yeah, thanks, Sue. So we thought this question might come up. It was so these were kind of general comments that didn't really fit into any of the other categories. So just to give you a flavour of what they were, there was comments around sort of lack of interconnectivity between public transport modes, balancing sort of the needs between different users, and kind of around cultural change as well was kind of sort of some that were categorised as this. Also connectivity to areas outside of WNC, and kind of alignment with other strategies as well, and convenience of car against other modes. So it was sort of a catch-all for kind of things that didn't really fit nicely into the other categories, but that we didn't want to sort of miss out from the coding. So so there's obviously more detail within the sort of consultation report as well.
If that doesn't fit into our catch-all, then in the Brackley section, the 500 bus serves Bicester Village and will be very helpful to serve Bicester North too. Well, just because a resident might not be able to sum up the correct words, I do think that's a little harsh. Connectivity is a phrase that is used by this council quite a lot.
Yes, so just to clarify that there was obviously a number of particular comments about the 500, etc., that were then coded within the bus sort of area, so they weren't lost, and all the bus and rail comments have been separated and passed on to the bus and rail team, so they're aware of everything that was raised as well as capturing them within the LTP as well. So, yeah.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
We also have, Chairman, the EEH connectivity studies, and they do talk a lot about cross-boundary connectivity, for example, Milton Keynes, Buckingham, Brackley, and that sort of thing as well. So they're not outside of the LTP. We have considered them in what the LTP says. So we're not ignoring that out of area connectivity, because there is that need for that connectivity, and particularly for Silverstone to Buckingham, Silverstone, Milton Keynes, etc., etc. So that is important. And
there's a strong evidence base there that we can.
There is. We've got the evidence base from the connectivity studies, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Phil.
Can I just thank Phil for that, because Buckingham Council were one of the councils that actually replied. So I strongly agree with that, and it is incredibly important that we do make that acknowledgement. So thank you.
It is. Working with all partners is absolutely essential, and thank you for the reassurance that obviously that's exactly what's happening, which is super. Lovely. Thank you very much also for your patience and presentation. Really helpful indeed, and hopefully you've taken on the comments that have come through. I know that Marina's been diligently writing notes as well, definitely. Oh,
Chair,
Carl, final point. Sorry, and then Esme.
You've promised me an update on these LC whips.
Yeah, you're very true. That's right. LC whips, absolutely. So LC whips, Esme.
That was just what I was going to prompt you to ask if you want to
alike, definitely.
So in terms of the LC whips, so we've developed LC whips for Brackley, Daventry and Toaster, and they were consulted on in February 2024. So they're due to go to Cabinet in April. So we've been busily sort of looking through all the comments and making revisions to the documents as well to reflect the feedback that we received. In the meantime, we've also been developing the LC whip for Northampton. So we've currently got a draft document which is with Councillor Larratt and Councillor Bagot-Webb at the moment for their comments before we go out to public consultation, hopefully in sort of February March time, though that may, hopefully we'll meet that deadline. But yeah, with adoption sort of later in the year. So, and I take your point about the website. I know we're looking at sort of updating the Highways sort of website anyway, so I'll pick that up as make sure that those documents are there once they've kind of gone through Cabinet. So
Super.
Thank you for the prompt.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alison, and thank you to Penny and James also on the screen joining us virtually, and thank you all to the committee for this evening. We do have the very final point, which is the review of the community's work programme. It's not completely up to date, so we'll circulate that by email later on this week. Thank you much for joining us. Much appreciated.
Chair, are we going to make any suggestions? Are we going to do anything as a committee?
In terms of the LTP, yes,
Yeah.
those suggestions, as I said, have just been taken on board as we agreed, and Marina's been taking notes as well, so those will go back into the team so they can take that through. And obviously, there have been plenty of engagement opportunities which continue, so if you have anything else you'd like to add, please do email them across.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I will.
Lovely. Thank you much indeed. Thank you for joining us, and a very safe journey. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.